Is Anton Silayev really the best fit for the Blue Jackets at 4th overall in this upcoming draft? We're going to talk about that on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day, every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Like I said at the top of the show, we're talking about Anton Silayev today, who is a guy that has been repeatedly, consistently linked to the Blue Jackets at 4th overall. So I've got one of my very favorite people to come on the show and talk to me about him a little bit, the good, the bad, who he would pick at 4th overall. It's Tony Ferarri day here at Locked on Blue Jackets. So I'm just going to get right into my conversation with him because he is much smarter than I am about this kind of thing. So that's coming up right now. There's been a ton of mock drafts done. It's the season, it's mock draft season, and there's one guy that is consistently a Blue Jacket at the end of every mock draft. And it's not my favorite name on the board, but maybe I'm underrating this guy. So we're doing another draft profile today. We've got Tony Ferarri here, and we're going to talk about Anton Silayev, who logically, I understand that he is more than just big, but that does seem to be his defining characteristic. Am I being uncharitable with that assessment?
I mean, I think you're about 50% of the way there because he's big and he can skate straight forward in a line. That sounds harsh, but he is big. He's 6'7". He's a unicorn in that regard. I think everyone that looks at him unfairly puts the expectation of, he's Victor Hedman or he's Zdeno Chara. Like, I saw some comparables today and someone said Chara, and I was like, why are you putting a Hall of Fame like expectation on this kid who has yet to play more than one season of games at the pro level? It's not fair and it's not reasonable even. He skates really well in a straight line. It's actually really impressive how functional he is with his stride, his ability to kind of like technically take good strides. That's beautiful. Where things fall apart a little bit is in small area game where he has to be a little bit more agile when he's pivoting defensively, and you start to see those issues. Is he offensive? Well, if you ask the first 6 games of his season, yes. If you ask the rest of it, definitely not. So you have that question too. Where is the offensive upside? And when you're comparing him to Chars and Hedmans, those guys are extremely good offensive players. So I think sometimes he's just getting a little bit overblown, a little bit overhyped because he is just this hulking, massive 6'7" defenseman. But there are tools there. Defensively, he's got great reach. He can finish guys along the boards. It's been fun to see him absolutely destroy people. I remember someone I was talking to sent me a clip of him destroying like a 5'10" guy just in the corner for no reason. The puck wasn't there. He just murdered him. And it was fun, but like that's just not really productive in the NHL. So he's big, he can skate, he's long, he can defend well with his stick, and he's physical. But yeah, there's a lot of questions in my opinion about Anton Silayev.
Yeah, I've heard some of the questions that are like that he doesn't have the hockey IQ. You know, he just like you said, just destroying this little guy in the corner for reasons. Is that something like, is that an assessment that you would kind of agree with? Are you kind of concerned about his decision making in the long run?
Yes and no. I think his decision-making defensively, for the most part, is pretty decent. Like, he doesn't try to go out of his way to chase hits too often. He doesn't go out of his way to try to go up and pinch or do anything crazy. But for them, like, he's also not a guy that's using his hockey IQ for the positive in terms of he sees a loose puck down the wall and he's attacking down the wall and really trying to chase that puck down or contributing offensively with great vision or anything like that. So while I think his hockey IQ isn't an issue, I don't think it's necessarily a positive in his game either.
Obviously, he's always going to be high on draft boards because GMs love size. It's That's hockey. He's currently at, I believe, number 2 on Bob McKenzie's list, and that's kind of the list that I look to as the most accurate in terms of where people are going to be drafted, not necessarily who is the best prospect. 2 feels high for a guy like Anton Silayev, who, and I only do this kind of recreationally. I am not an expert, but I don't think he's in my top 3 of available defensemen this year. Where do you have him on your board, and kind of where do you see him going on the day?
Well, for me, I think he's down at 17 or 18. I'll double check real quick while I talk about him a little bit. But he is a guy, yeah, he's at 17. He's a guy that I think I'm personally a lot lower on him. Bob's higher on him because he talks to scouts and he talks to different people around the league. And there's other people in the middle. I think for me, there's so many things that I have questions about. Like I said, the pivoting, the small area game, where his offensive game is going to end up. Because if he's a guy putting up 15 points at the NHL level, is that really going to give you second overall, third overall value? Because although I don't think guys like Aaron Ekblad are necessarily offensive defensemen, you see them still putting up 30, 40 points in a season. And Aaron Ekblad isn't the greatest defenseman in the world, but he was a guy that went first overall. He was a guy that had a ton of expectations, and he does lean defensively. So I think that's where you kind of look at a guy like Anton Silayev and go, where is your offensive ceiling? Because if it's 10, 15 points, that's an issue for me. I need my defensemen to at least be functional puck movers. And there are times where I think unless he's making the very simple outlet because a winger or a center come back into the defensive zone to kind of pick up for him, then he has some issues. So I worry about it. I know NHL teams are a little higher on him. Some NHL teams are very much not higher on him. So it's going to be interesting because, yeah, he's long, he's big. NHL teams love that. But is he the defenseman that ends up being second or third on everyone's list and then ends up being the fourth or fifth defenseman that go? Because Team A says, oh, we could choose between him and Bouillon, but we really like Bouillon. Team B goes, oh, we could choose between him and Dickinson, and they choose Dickinson. Oh, we choose between him and Parekh, and they choose Parekh. And then Silayev ends up being the guy selected at 7th, 8th overall. It's going to be interesting because he's going to be a guy that I think not only myself, but NHL scouts, people like Bob McKenzie and others. I mean, maybe not Bob because he's basically retired at this point, but others that are in this industry are going to look back on 5, 6, 7 years from now and go, did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? And why?
In a minute, I've got more of my conversation with Tony about Silayev, but first, I'm going to tell you all about Game Time. It's the summer, and that means it's baseball season. You can go to MLB games for super cheap using Game Time. I went to my first MLB game last summer and had an absolute blast. Living in the Bay Area soon means I'm really excited to go check out Giants games, and I will be using Game Time to do so. They are the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They've got last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat. The lowest price guarantee means that if you find tickets in your section and row for less, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference, so they're taking the guesswork out of buying tickets. They've also got the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, and it's not just baseball. They've got hockey, they've got football, they've got basketball, concert, comedy, theater, anything that you need a ticket to get in, you can get at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Yeah, I think that's kind of where, like what you said a little bit earlier there, is where I'm kind of at, is and for the Blue Jackets specifically, because he's been named in all of these mock drafts, and it's like, well, here's your future number one defenseman, Blue Jackets fans, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, do you want, like, is 4th overall the place to take a defensive defenseman? Is 4th overall the place to take a almost purely shutdown defenseman? Especially, you have guys in, I don't think you have that defensive shutdown defenseman in the wings necessarily, but you have guys like Jiricek who have the size and the meanness. You have guys like Matejchuk who has the skating. does he fit into the Blue Jackets kind of prospect pool in your opinion? How do you feel about him kind of as compared to guys like Jiricek, guys like Matejchuk?
I think he fits in just because the Blue Jackets don't have somebody like him. A purely defensive, in my opinion, purely defensive guy who is absolutely massive. Jiricek brings some of the size and meanness, but Silayev brings a little bit more of that passive defensive game. He's going to let's play come to him a little bit too much, in my opinion, but he finds success at it because he is 6'7". He's able to reach a guy from the faceoff dot as they enter the blue line. Basically, it's crazy sometimes how long his stick is, how long his reach is, and he's able to just dislodge pucks, swipe them to the side, and then he goes into a board battle. And when he's in a 50-50 board battle at 6'7", 200 and whatever pounds he's going to be when he gets to the NHL, he should be able to win that battle. With that said, he's got 3 years left on his contract still, so whoever does draft him is going to be waiting. I know people have been talking about Ivan Demidov's Russian factor. People were harping on Michkov last year. Michkov had 3 years. Demidov has 1, and everyone talks about their Russian factor. No one's talking about Silayev's Russian factor. And I'm not here to promote the Russian factor because I think it's a little bit BS in general. But he has 3 years on his deal, so teams aren't going to have to wait for this guy.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me that Silayev specifically hasn't been. He's talked about as this potential top 5 pick in the draft. Demidov, people are saying, "Oh, well, Demidov's going to drop because no one wants the Russian factor," like you said, and meanwhile, no one is saying anything about Silayev. It was kind of similar to last year, where everyone was concerned about Michkov, and then the Coyotes ended up taking Dmitry Simashev.
Yeah.
At was it 6th overall, just before Michkov, and again, no one had that. No one had the same conversation. So it's fascinating. Not double standards exactly, but it is so interesting to me who people kind of pick and choose to be stressed about in terms of coming over from the KHL.
And I think part of it too is that it's a way for teams easily to dismiss the small skilled winger rather than the big hulking brutish defenseman. So I think it's just a convenient excuse for a lot of teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. Like you said, teams will have different rankings of defensemen on their draft boards, basically universally, because there's a million defensemen in this draft that could go kind of in the top 10. Where does Silayev sit kind of in your your defensive rankings? I know that you're higher on a lot of guys that other scouts are maybe not quite as high on. And again, that's been the interesting thing about doing these draft profiles kind of this year, has been every time I do a defenseman, everyone, I think to a man, everyone I've talked to has had a different favorite defenseman in this draft, which is so interesting to me. So kind of where does Silayev sit in terms of, judging him against Zane Parekh, Ziv Boyum, Sam Dickinson, Lev Shinov? Where does he sit kind of as compared to those guys, in your opinion?
For me, he's at the back end of that. And that's just strictly because I think his ceiling is very limited. I think his ceiling and his floor are just about the same. And that's, for me, that's a little concerning. I saw something interesting. I think it was from Scott Wheeler. So shout out to his work and all the stuff he does at The Athletic, where he was interviewing people in the hockey industry and talking about the big 6 defensemen. And it was Lev Shinov, Dickinson, Parekh, Silayev, who else was it? Ziv Boyum and Zane Parekh. So there was the 6 guys. And for me, 2 of those 6 guys are the 7th and 8th defensemen on my board. Actually, 7th and I think 9th or 10th defenseman on my board. And one of them is Silayev. Silayev's the 7th defenseman on my board. I have a guy like Alphonse Frey higher. I have a guy like Adam Jiricek, a little higher, because I think what they're able to bring is a little bit more. And I know you and I will talk about David Jiricek another time, and he's a guy that I think brings a lot of what people want from Silayev without being 6'7", essentially.
In a minute, I've got the end of my conversation with Tony, where we talk a little bit about who he would take at 4th overall if he was the GM of the Blue Jackets. But first, I want to take a moment to bring up one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. If you ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your own hockey franchise, do you think you could run the Blue Jackets better than Don Waddell? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is most definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, lead it to glory, hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. As a Blue Jackets fan, you know there is no off-season. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you're going to love this game. It's completely free. It's playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And, by the way, Locked On Network listeners are going to get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On NHL in the game store, so make sure to check it out. Download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM, start your dynasty today. I guess it comes down to it. I feel like this is something that we have a conversation about every year when we do this is, do you go high risk, high reward, or do you go medium risk, medium reward, or low risk, low reward? And like you said, his floor and his ceiling are basically, about the same. So he is kind of essentially what you see in Silayev is kind of what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Or do you go for someone who is maybe a little bit of a riskier pick, but someone who has that higher ceiling, like you said, Alphonse Frey, who we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Sebastian High of Locked On Prospect, and he's really high on Frey as a player. And again, it's that kind of, do you go for someone who has that risk factor, or do you go for someone who is maybe a little bit, again, what you're getting with Silayev, which kind of comes back to my point with the Blue Jackets, which I feel like they almost never go with the safe pick. You look back and you look at, okay, well, Kent Johnson at 5th overall wasn't the safe pick. Adam Fantilli kind of, I guess, that was the slam dunk. That was the you break your ankles running to the stage. I think Jiricek was maybe a little bit more of a safe pick than some of the other options, but I feel like the Blue Jackets never go with the low risk, low reward guy. If they have a chance to do something flashy and go high risk, high reward, they will. They draft for skill and they figure it out.
They took Denton Mateja fairly high in the draft. Like you said, Kent Johnson. These are guys that they have a lot of boom or bust factor at the end of the day. I think Kent Johnson has flashed some of the skill he has at the NHL level, and he was scratched 9 times this year and sent to the AHL, and justified or not, it happened. It's one of those things where I think you work with guys like that and you build them up to be the best they can be. And I think with a guy like Silayev, you're going, do you want a 4th pair defenseman at his floor, or a number 4 defenseman on his floor, or he could really turn out and be a really good number 3. And for me, that's kind of where I look at him. Like, could he be a top pair guy? Maybe with the right partner, you get the perfect blend of a mix of skills, and he could be that guy, but he's not going to be the driving force up there. He's going to be a really good second pair guy, in my opinion. I think of really good defensive presence, but yeah, like you said, there's guys that I think fit the Blue Jackets profile more, and now that Don Waddell's in charge there, it's going to be a little bit different. I think this is going to be a year that we're looking at the Blue Jackets draft and going, where are they going from here forward? Because I know in Carolina, Don Waddell was really good at delegating and going, chief scouts, head amateur scouting, you guys make your picks. I'm here to support you. I'm here to do what you need me to do, but you guys are the ones that are experts in this. And hopefully when he gets to, as he's in Columbus, he's doing the same thing there and empowering the amateur scouting staff and the head of amateur scouting to go and get the guys that they feel are the best player, whether or not they're the consensus best guy.
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna the draft. I'm really excited about the draft. I think it's going to be really interesting, and I do think, and this might be confirmation bias or recency bias or whatever on my part, but since they hired Waddell, I've seen more names popping up as potential picks for the Blue Jackets than before the hire. It was all Silayev, and now we're seeing is it Lindstrom? Is it Demidov? I saw someone have Constantinopolis at 4th overall, which seems like a choice, but we don't have to. We'll get into who the Blue Jackets should take at 4th overall in a minute. But I like what you're saying about delegating, because the Blue Jackets' strength has been drafting. For all Kekalainen's fault, he is an excellent drafter. He was a scout previous to being a GM. I think that shows. He's doing scouting work with the Blue Jackets. He was at the combine with the Blue Jackets, and Vili Siren, their head scout, I think is a really underrated part of this organization. So yeah, I could see Waddell just kind of saying, hey, you guys pick who you like. If I have a strong feeling about it, I'll say something, but otherwise I trust you guys to make the decision. So it's going to be really interesting to see if the Blue Jackets change their drafting strategy this year, or if it's just kind of going to be more of the same, which I'm not. If it's more of the same, I'm extremely not mad about it, So it's going to be really interesting to see.
And that's the thing, right? Anytime a GM comes in his first draft, especially when it's so close to the draft, it's not like he's had a lot of time to hire a whole new staff or look through this draft class on his own and really kind of match up the needs of the Blue Jackets. I think back to the Leafs last year when they hired Jim Treliving or Brad Treliving, and there's other teams that have done that. Like I remember when Steve Yzerman first came into the Red Wings. You lean on to the amateur scouting staff that's there and kind of let them take the lead here because you don't have as much intimate knowledge of what this team needs. You don't have as much intimate knowledge of the guys that fit in with the group that you have and stuff. So I think at least for this draft, we're going to see Waddell lean into that. And I think the Blue Jackets will continue doing what they've been doing the last few years, which, like you said, isn't bad because they've been doing a pretty good job in the draft lately.
Yeah, for sure. Let's kind of finish up this episode with a little bit of talk about fourth overall. So we talked a little bit about how Silayev probably isn't the guy at fourth. Who's fourth on your board? And if there's a different answer to this, who would you recommend the Blue Jackets take at fourth? Like who's the best case scenario for the Blue Jackets at this point?
Fourth on my board is Cayden Lindstrom. And I am very confident in the fact that I think he's going to be a very good NHL center. I think the Blue Jackets would be almost the perfect situation for him because any team that drafts Cayden Lindstrom is going to go, we need him to be our number one center of the future. The Blue Jackets aren't going to do that because they have Adam Fantilli. So they're going to be able to go, okay, he's our number two center for the future. And then if Cayden Lindstrom becomes a 70-point guy, great. If he becomes an 80-point guy, fantastic. You have two centers down the middle of the lineup that could be point per game players. I think it's a really good situation for Cayden Lindstrom. He brings a little bit of what Adam Fantilli brings in terms of being able to score and play make. He's got a little bit more power in his game. I think he's Adam Fantilli has some meanness in his game. He's got some of that, like he'll go out there and if you cross check him, he's going to hit you back hard. Whereas Cayden Lindstrom, I'll never forget. It's implanted in my brain since I saw it earlier this season. His first game back in the playoffs with Medicine Hat, he's in a board battle. I think his third or fourth shift of the game. He hasn't really been hit or tested much physically yet, and someone cross-checks him in the lower back. Well, obviously he's got the back issue that held him out, and he's fully healthy now from what I've been told and what I've been reached out to people and talked to them. But you hit him in the back, and then he turned around and he leveled this kid. He got a penalty for it. Because not only did he level him, but he laid into him two more times while he was down on the ground. Almost to say, like, don't test me. I will still murder you. And with that said, his very next shift, he went out and scored a pretty nice goal. So it's one of these things where, like, he's kind of that perfect fit for the Blue Jackets. Now, who should they draft? That's a bit of a different question because I think if Cayden Lindstrom's there, he's certainly worth that pick. But we could have Ivan Demidov there. He's number 2 on my board. And Berkeley Catton's number 3. Personally, any of those 3 players that are there, that's who I'm picking. It's going to be really interesting because very well we could have all 3 there. Demidov, do they want to bring a Russian kid in? I think you should because pairing him with Fantilli for the next 15 years would just be...
That sounds like a fun time. Yeah.
It'd be chef's kiss. It'd be fantastic.
Fantilli Brindley. I would like to see it.
Oh, what an annoying line to play against. And not only that, but it would give he wouldn't have to come into this team where they don't have Russians and they don't have some sort of communication and culture. They have the Russian line who, as we talked about before this podcast, played the most minutes for the Blue Jackets last year, even though it was only like 260. So he's able to come in. He has people that he can be comfortable around and start to learn the language and whatnot. So I think personally, Demidov would be great in there. Lindstrom would be awesome. But yeah, they're going to have a choice of a really good forward. And if they do go defenseman, for me, it's Zeke William. I think he's the most all-around guy. Maybe they go with Dickinson if they want to go a little more defensively, but it'll be an interesting choice.
Yeah. The fourth overall, I mean, anything after second for me is such a crapshoot. that it's been kind of impossible to predict who's going to be available, who they're going to take. It's been fun, but also I think this is the first draft since like 2020 where I've really had no idea what's going to happen. But if people want to if they want to see your rankings, if they want to learn more about prospects in general, where can people find you and your work online, Tony?
All my work's at thehockeynews.com. Some of my videos for the Game Tape with Tony stuff is on Elite Prospects YouTube page. But you can go to my Twitter at the Tony Ferarri, and my rankings are pinned to the top. The top 100 are there. Full scouting reports on the top 50 guys, especially really, really detailed ones, the top 32. So definitely check that out. It was a lot of fun to put together, and tons of work throughout the year.
And that's all I've got for today. Tomorrow, Tony is back, and we're talking about David Jiricek's little brother, Adam Jiricek, and whether he could be a fit for the Blue Jackets as well. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms, on YouTube, and on SiriusXM. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.